I'll be honest, family dinners in our house were never really about family. They were about appearances. My husband loved to host these big reunion nights a few times a year, where cousins, aunts, and even old business partners were invited. He liked the house full, the lights bright, the table long and impressive, like it was his personal stage. That evening, I walked around the dining room making sure everything was perfect. White tablecloth pressed smooth, polished silverware lined up, crystal glasses catching the light just right. The roast was in the oven, the wine was breathing, and I could already hear my husband's booming laugh from the living room as guests arrived. To anyone looking in, it was a picture-perfect American family gathering, but I knew better. When my daughter came into the kitchen to help me bring out the bread basket, I leaned toward her and whispered, "Smile, honey. Don't make this harder." I forced my own smile, the kind you give neighbors or colleagues when you want them to believe everything is just fine. Inside, though, there was a sour taste I couldn't shake. I knew exactly what this night was really about. Not warmth, not togetherness, but performance. My husband thrived on being admired, on playing the role of the charismatic patriarch. And I played my role too. I kept the food coming, I kept my voice pleasant, and I made sure no one saw the cracks in the picture. Because in our family, the only sin worse than cruelty was letting anyone else see it. Dinner had barely settled into its rhythm when the show really began. My husband sat at the head of the table, glass of wine in hand, spinning stories about his college days and business wins as if he were on late-night television. Every pause, every gesture, it was all rehearsed, and the room rewarded him with polite laughs. I was busy refilling water glasses when my brother-in-law leaned across the table and asked my daughter why she was so quiet. She barely had time to open her mouth before my husband cut her off with that grin of his. "She's always been better seen than heard." A few chuckles followed, the kind people give when they don't want to seem uptight. I froze. I knew that grin. He wasn't finished. Then he leaned toward her, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Come on! You're not contributing to the conversation. At least contribute to the decor." And just like that, his hand was on the back of her head, pressing her face down into her plate. Mashed potatoes, gravy, the whole thing smeared across her hair and cheek. The room erupted in gasps, then laughter. Laughter that rolled around the table like it was part of the script. And I laughed too. God help me, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because that's what the moment demanded. That's what people expected from me. To laugh, to play along, to pretend it was just a harmless joke. Inside, though, I felt the heat of shame creep up my neck. For a second, I saw my daughter's eyes as she pulled her face back from the plate, wide, stunned, but dry. No tears, just silence. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. My husband beamed, soaking in the attention, while phones came up to capture the moment. And all I could think was, if I don't laugh, if I break the act now, the whole illusion collapses. And I am not ready for that. So I lifted my glass, smiled stiffly, and let the noise wash over me. All I had to do, I told myself, was survive the night. After the laughter died down and the table chatter shifted back to football scores and vacation plans, I slipped into the hallway to catch my breath. That's when I noticed the bathroom door was shut, the faint sound of running water behind it. I knocked lightly. "You okay in there?" No answer. Just the faucet shutting off. A moment later, the door cracked open, and I caught a glimpse before she could close it again. My daughter, standing at the sink. Her hair was streaked with gravy, her cheeks flushed, her mascara smudged into faint shadows. For a second, I thought I'd see tears. But her eyes were dry, and the look on her face, it wasn't defeat. It wasn't even embarrassment. It was something sharper. In the mirror's reflection, I saw her jaw set, her shoulders stiff. There was a calculation there, a focus that startled me. It was the kind of expression I'd seen on her father's face before walking into a boardroom, like someone already writing the script for what came next. I froze, hand still on the doorframe. My chest tightened. For just a moment, it felt like I was looking at a stranger. Then she noticed me. Our eyes met in the mirror, and I swear there was a flicker. Something between accusation and promise. It made me shiver. But as quickly as it came, I forced myself to push the thought away. She's just angry, I told myself. Anyone would be after that kind of humiliation. She'll cool off. She'll forget. I closed the door softly, retreated back toward the dining room, and slipped into my. I closed the door softly, retreated back toward the dining room, and slipped into my seat as though nothing had happened. My husband was still laughing with his brother, telling some story about a golf trip. Guests were sipping wine, scrolling through their phones, replaying the joke like it was a highlight reel. And me? I smiled on cue again, pretending the unease in my stomach wasn't growing stronger with every passing minute. Back at the table, I tried to lose myself in the rhythm of passing dishes, topping off glasses, keeping the machine of the evening moving. That was my role, after all. Make it all look seamless. But I couldn't ignore the glow. Everywhere I looked, there were little screens lit up, hands tilting phones at just the right angle. A cousin snapping photos of the roast, another recording my husband mid-story, an uncle replaying the very moment he'd shoved our daughter's face into her plate. At first, I told myself it was harmless. These nights always ended up as a flood of Facebook albums and Instagram stories. By next week, everyone would move on to new pictures of their kids' soccer games or vacation sunsets. That's what I clung to. They'll forget. It was just a joke. But then I noticed her. My daughter sat stiffly, not touching her food, not speaking. Her eyes weren't vacant, though. They were moving, tracking, following each phone as it came up, as it flickered to life, as someone scrolled back to watch the clip again. It wasn't the gaze of someone humiliated. It was the gaze of someone taking inventory. A chill crept up my arms. I glanced down, busied myself with folding a napkin, tried to shake it off. She's just embarrassed, I thought. She's hyper-aware because it happened to her. Nothing more. But when I looked up again, her expression hadn't changed. Calm, focused, almost deliberate. And for the first time that night, it wasn't my husband's booming laugh that filled my ears. It was the faint hum of those little screens, capturing, replaying, holding pieces of a moment we all pretended was just part of the show. Pieces I suddenly wasn't sure we could control. In the days that followed, the house felt strangely calm. Too calm. My husband was busy replaying his favorite moments from the dinner, already talking about round 2. He'd rented a banquet hall for the next weekend. A chance, he said, to showcase a slideshow of our perfect family night. Photos, short clips, smiling faces, proof of how well we had it together. I sat across from him at the kitchen table, scrolling through the pictures on his laptop, while he dictated what belonged and what didn't. Use that shot of Madison laughing. Oh, and make sure we get the toast with Uncle Ray. Good lighting there. His voice carried the same confidence it always did. But my eyes kept drifting to my daughter. She was quieter than usual. Not sulking, not dramatic, just still. When I asked her to help choose background music, she nodded politely. When Madison suggested a group picture, she even smiled and said, "That one's nice." To anyone else, it would have looked like cooperation. A teenager moving on, playing along. But I knew better. There was something behind the silence. It wasn't resignation. It wasn't defeat, it was patience. The same patience I'd seen in her eyes that night in the bathroom mirror. Like she was waiting for something. I tried to ignore it, kept myself busy adjusting the order of slides, fussing over fonts, anything to drown out that gnawing thought. She's fine. She's helping. That's all this is. Still, when I caught her watching the screen over my shoulder, her expression unreadable, a quiet realization pressed in on me. She wasn't forgetting. She wasn't moving on. She was biding her time. The banquet hall gleamed under strings of lights, the kind rented for weddings and anniversaries. Round tables draped in linen, waiters weaving through the crowd with trays of hors d'oeuvres, champagne glasses catching the light. My husband had spared no expense. This wasn't just a family night anymore. It was a production. Old friends, extended relatives, even a few business contacts filled the room. Laughter echoed off the high ceiling as he worked the crowd, shaking hands, clapping backs, booming out stories as though he were mayor of the town. People leaned in, hungry for his attention, feeding his performance. And I played my part, of course, smiling, greeting, complimenting dresses, nodding at jokes. From the outside, we were the picture of stability and charm, exactly what he wanted. But when my eyes drifted toward the corner of the room, the illusion cracked. She was there, my daughter, sitting quietly at a small table, away from the spotlight. No phone in her hand, no conversation, just watching. Not sulking, not restless. Simply present, still, like she was waiting for her cue. Every so often, someone would glance at her and then look away quickly, almost guilty. It was as if the memory of what had happened at dinner clung to her like a shadow they couldn't politely erase. I tried to distract myself with small talk, but I couldn't shake the unease. My husband's laughter rose louder. Glasses clinked in toast after toast. The slideshow setup waited against the far wall like the centerpiece of the night. And then, for just a second, our eyes met across the room. There was no anger in her stare, no plea for comfort. Just a steady, level gaze that pinned me in place. It wasn't loud, but it was louder than all the chatter, all the music, all the noise in that hall. A chill ran down my spine. I looked away first. For the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't just part of the audience tonight. Maybe I was part of the story she was about to tell. The lights dimmed, and the room quieted down. A title card appeared on the big screen. A Night to Remember. The crowd gave a little cheer, raising glasses. I felt my shoulders drop with relief. The first slides were exactly what I expected. Smiling group shots, kids piled together on the couch, my husband mid-toast with that polished grin of his. Laughter bubbled around the tables. For a moment, I thought, maybe this will hold. Maybe we'll get through tonight unscathed. And then the footage changed. The picture on the screen wasn't posed or polished. It was shaky, raw. Someone's phone recording. The dinner table. My husband's hand pressing down. My daughter's face disappearing into a plate of mashed potatoes. The sound of gasps, then laughter, filling the speakers. The air in the hall snapped tight, like someone had pulled the cord on a balloon. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because there, frozen in the next frame, wasn't just my husband grinning in triumph. It was me, sitting beside him, glass of wine in hand, smiling. Not a smile of pride, not a smile of kindness, a smile that looked cold, complicit. And suddenly, the shame wasn't his alone. It was mine. My stomach dropped as the realization sank in. I hadn't just survived that night by laughing along. I had become part of the joke. And now, every single person in this hall could see it with their own eyes. The humiliation wasn't just his performance unraveling, it was mine too. For a few long seconds after the clip ended, the hall was silent. No one moved. The only sound was the faint hum of the projector, the screen still glowing with that frozen image of me, wineglass raised, smiling while my daughter wiped gravy from her hair. Then the whispers began. "Did you see that?" She laughed. She actually laughed. My head turned instinctively, but I didn't need to. I could feel it, dozens of eyes landing on me, heavy, searching. Not just at him, not just at the man who shoved his daughter into her plate, but at me. The mother who sat there and let it happen. The wife who played along. Across the room, an old friend I hadn't seen in years shook her head slowly, her mouth pressed into a thin line. Our eyes met for only a moment, but it was enough. The disappointment there was sharper than any words. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, to blot myself out of the picture. But there was no hiding. The judgment wasn't just for his cruelty, it was for my silence, my complicity. I'd told myself for years that keeping the peace was survival, that smiling, smoothing things over, playing the role, was what protected us. But in that instant, I saw the truth. Survival had cost me everything else: respect, integrity, even my daughter's trust. And now, under the weight of those stares, I realized I hadn't just lost control of the story my husband liked to tell. I'd lost my own name in the process. The slideshow ended in silence, but the fallout began almost immediately. One of my husband's longtime business contacts, someone he'd bragged about knowing for decades, stood up without a word, slid his chair back, and walked straight out. A few others followed, shaking their heads, muttering that they'd seen enough. By the end of the night, half the room had cleared out, leaving only the clinking of glasses abandoned on linen-covered tables. Phones were still out, but no one was laughing at the clips anymore. They were whispering, sharing, pointing. The image of our perfect family had shattered in real time, and there was no gathering it back together. And then I saw her. My daughter stood, picked up her bag, and walked slowly toward the exit. She didn't slam a door, didn't make a scene. She didn't need to. The silence around her was louder than any words. Just before she reached the doorway, she glanced back. At me. Not at him. At me. It wasn't anger I saw in her eyes. It was something colder. A verdict. A final acknowledgement of everything I had allowed. In that moment, I wanted to get up, to run after her, to grab her hand, to say the words I'd swallowed for years. "I'm sorry. I should have protected you. I should have stopped him." But my body stayed in the chair, rigid, useless. It was as if the weight of all those years, of smiling, smoothing over, pretending, had welded me in place. My silence then had made me complicit, and my silence now was keeping me from reaching her. She walked out the door without another word, and with every step she took, I felt the ground beneath our family splintering. Because the truth was undeniable. My husband had lost his reputation that night, but I had lost my daughter. I've replayed that night more times than I can count. The lights dimming, the footage rolling, the gasps, the whispers, the looks. But the part that lingers isn't the crowd turning on him. It's her, standing at the door, looking back at me one last time before she walked out. People talk about shame like it's something that belongs to the guilty. But I've learned it spreads. It sticks to anyone who stays silent. I told myself for years that smiling, keeping the peace, smoothing things over, was protecting the family. That if I played my role, kept the house polished, kept my voice even, kept my husband's temper hidden, we'd be okay. That illusion carried me further than I care to admit. But the truth is, My silence was the sharpest weapon in the room. It cut deeper than his words, deeper than his cruelty. Because it told my daughter that she was alone. My husband lost his reputation that night. His friends, his business partners, his carefully built image, all of it crumbled in front of the same people he tried so hard to impress. But me? I lost something greater. I lost her. And I know I may never get her back. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if she sees me the same way I saw her in that bathroom mirror, unfamiliar, unrecognizable, someone she can't trust. And I can't blame her. Because the hardest truth is this: she didn't just bring him down. She freed herself from us. And me? I'm still here, trapped in the cage I built out of my own silence.